Now, as an aside, before I forget, um, how I deal with gold leaf powder is, first of all, I try to avoid plastic because plastic is very highly electrostatic. You know, and, well, if you deal with a plastic spoon to try to dispense the gold leaf powder from out of its container that you purchased it in, the gold leaf wants to jump up and spread itself all over the surfaces of that spoon or whatever it is you're using, and create and not go where you want it to go, which is maybe the tip of the spoon. So I use a toothpick because wood is less electrostatic than is plastic, but a toothpick doesn't scoop much. So what I do is I take two toothpicks and I spread them slightly apart, tiny gap, but I run them in parallel. So they're kind of like a chopstick situation. But you don't use them like a chopstick in that you don't move the tips of the toothpicks, like you would move the tips of a pair of chopsticks in your hand. You just keep them stable. The same parallel, slight gap between them along their entire length. And now you've got yourself a wooden spoon that's nice and small, but large enough to scoop and hold a significant amount of gold leaf powder. And then you can scoop that out of your bottle as you tip the bottle slightly to remove some powder. Now, getting back to what I was trying to talk about, but my cell phone quit on me. The Nazis revived nudity as a recreational activity, and thus redefining it as something other than sexual activity, something to do while naked, besides sex, was body culture. And it was male groups of young individuals, children basically, or young men, but mostly adolescents, or sometimes pre-adolescents would join the gang, and they would go to natural settings away from the city and cavort about in the nude and exercise and basically enjoy themselves physically, that they are alive, they have a physical body, they're healthy and they're young and they're energetic, and play, sport, recreation, and exercise as well, but mostly to enjoy it, to enjoy making use of a physical body. When you abuse somebody, you can abuse them mentally, you can abuse them physically. And basically, when you abuse somebody, they get a low self-esteem in that area of their psyche, or in that area of their consciousness, in that area of their perception about themselves. And that's the area that has to be fixed. You have to address it somehow. Now, nudists will claim that it improves their self-esteem. And then you have to wonder, well, why do they have to do that to improve their self-esteem? Well, because they have some issue with their physical body, and they need to improve their self-esteem with their body. I was born sickly, and so it helps me change my attitude about myself, despite it doesn't improve my health. Well, it does in the sense that my attitude changes. And this is what I learned about gold. The ingestion of gold leaf powder is that it shifts your attitude so that it's more on a positive line of perception. But nudity does that too, and in particular nude exercise. So there's all these different ideas of what kind of nudism, what kind of nudist are you? Are you a hedonist? See, this is what we normally assume. And our society is rank in painting a picture of nudity as, oh yeah, the Romans in their bacchanals, they'd get naked and have lots of sex and get drunk. Well, you could do that, but that's just one thing you can do while you're naked. You could do other things. You could do your laundry, vacuum the floors in your house, I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do while naked, and one is exercise. And this is what the Germans did just prior, in the 1930s, just prior to World War II. And it wasn't really recognized socially because I don't think the Germans in general were into that. But that is when it got revived. And then it took a hiatus during World War II. Everything took a hiatus. And then came back afterwards. But this time, when it came back afterwards, it spread like crazy all over Europe. Not the United States, because we really commercialized World War II. Unlike the Europeans, who couldn't, because they didn't have the resources, we did, and we made a whole business out of it, a business enterprise. And that's the only reason why we won the war, is we built more stuff. You know, the Germans had technology we didn't have, but they couldn't manufacture it to the same degree. And they were beginning to, towards the end of the war, and had they been allowed to do so, they would have won, because, or the war would have dragged on longer, because they were starting to think like we do. You know, they had created the assembly line situation for their concentration camps, but they, you know, learning from Henry Ford, but they did not apply it to the same degree to their technology. They had technology far in advance of what you and I can consider, and now we think, oh, it's aliens, you know. And that's to protect the Nazis who are still around, who don't have a country anymore, who still possess this technology that's way beyond anything common to our awareness, is that it never got mass-produced. It was never allowed to. We won the war, unfortunately, and we killed the goose that could have laid a golden egg for everyone. Only problem is we would have all been Germans. We would have come under German rule at that point. So you can take it any way you like, I suppose. I guess it's the wrong way to go about, you know, forcing a way of life onto everyone, whether they want it or not, even though it's very highly efficient. You know, the Germans were very efficient. They were force-feeding it to everyone else. The problem with war is you get sucked into, it doesn't matter. We just want to make a little war. Oh, really? How do you do that? Because you end up sucking in other people into your fiasco, and it becomes a global event. So war is not a pretty affair, and it's not the right way to do things, because it sucks everybody into it, into its maelstrom, and it becomes a bigger mess than it was before. It snowballs. This is why my situation has gotten worse, because it's been a war. It's been dealt with as a war within a nuclear family of 3 surviving members of the 4 members of that family, my family. Amazing. And I basically took the French approach and sat down and said, no, we're not going to fight. No, the Swiss approach. Well, no, it's not the same, because Switzerland, the Nazis hid all their money in Swiss banks. No, obviously, I did provide a service. Well, I did, but it was basically to be abused, so, and not fight back and not complain. Yeah, I considered myself too weak to compete, so I didn't. I would object, but once, and that was it. And the ones I was objecting against were stubborn and kept fighting back, and I let them win by default. So body culture is a way to improve one's self-image, and to do it in the nude helps improve that one step further. But it's just one activity. It's just one way to go about exercise, is to do it in the nude. And it's not a bad way to exercise. I'm hardwired in my brain that way. I've been doing it since I was 14, so I can't see doing exercise any other way. I get very depressed because this is not the way to exercise. You're not supposed to wear anything. Now, why did I bring this up? Oh, as an activity. So it's a selfish activity, just like eating food is, or just like eating gold on food is. But it's what you do afterwards. After you get done being selfish and feed your face with food, what do you do with that energy? How do you use it? So why did I bring up the Germans? What's the point? Oh, the emphasis being that they were using their nudity in recreational sport and recreational exercise to enjoy themselves, to enjoy the act of taking care of their bodies. And for those of us who need to, because I abused myself in my last lifetime physically, so I need to take care of my body in this lifetime. That's the only dharma I have, is to take care of my body. Everything else is extra. And yet, if I get good enough at it, I have lots of free time left over to take care of other people. And that seems to be how I spend most of my day, is taking care of people, one of which is myself, one of whom, and but if I get efficient enough at it, I have a lot of time left over to take care of other people. And one of those things is to create these videos and share the information with you of my experience, my personal experience. So gold leaf has a very interesting property, and it's to bypass fasting, basically, and yet still make eating into a sacramental act in which you improve your appreciation for food by taking it to a whole nother level, by giving it value it didn't have. Organic gardening is good. Oh, that's first step. But it's still not enough. So to sprinkle a little gold leaf powder over the food that you're eating is the next step after gardening. It's the food preparation part. So you want to cook it with love, and you want to, have the best of intentions when you prepare the meal, and you want to heat it instead of eating it cold. All those things help. And this is just one more thing to do, to take the food and elevate it to a whole nother level. Say prayers, say grace, before eating. All those things, they all help. And this is just one more thing to add to your litany of things to do to elevate food, the status of food, so that it has the best effect possible in our life for whatever purpose we put our life to. Now that we've fed our body with food, what do we do with our body and our brain? So I guess I said what I needed to say, as much as I could say. And my phone let me, because I removed all the whatever that was taking up all the space on my phone and disallowing me from making videos. Crazy. You got to work with these. You got to work with technology. When it stands in your way, you got to adapt and make changes, and don't just assume you can do whatever you like. It's bizarre. Some apps behave very bizarre. Why does an app take up all this space on your cell phone when you're not even using the app? You got nothing in it. It shouldn't take up so much room when you're not using it. Anyway, so I deleted the app. I won't say which one it is. It's because it's none of your business. I had to do a little house cleaning on my cell phone so I could continue this video series. Anyway, enough said.